is 6 a.m. in Shanghai, 4 p.m. in Mexico City, and 6 p.m. here in Atlanta. I'm Lynda Kinkade in for Julia Chatterley, and wherever you are in the world, this is your first move. A warm welcome to First Move. Here's your need to know. Campus unrest. Police arrest hundreds of people across the United States as protesters rock universities from coast to coast. Higher for longer. The U.S. Federal Reserve Chair says interest rates will remain higher for now. And fancy floating away in the house from up or speeding towards a night at the Ferrari Museum. Airbnb might have your answer. That conversation coming up. But first, the latest on the U.S. campus protests. Dozens of people arrested at the University of Wisconsin-Madison as police try to remove the encampment on school grounds. And at UCLA, all classes have been cancelled there after overnight clashes between pro-Palestinian demonstrators and counter-protesters. Police were later called in to break up the violence. In New York, officers cleared out pro-Palestinian protesters at Columbia University overnight. The school there has asked the NYPD to remain on campus until after its commencement ceremony later this month. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said there were outside agitators at Columbia.
There were individuals on the campus, should not have been there. There were people who are professionals. And we saw evidence of training. We saw a shift in tactics that were being used. And when you start using the intelligence that Intel was able to supply, we knew it was time to communicate directly with the school and say, you have more than a peaceful protest on your hand.
Our Nick White has this report.
Early this morning, campus police arrested dozens clearing an encampment at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
They started pushing them, they started shoving them. Students were held down with batons.
Most were released without citations. College officials say it's unclear how many were affiliated with the school. They say some resisted arrest, report 4 law enforcement officers were injured, and say peaceful protests that abide by campus rules are still allowed. Just no tents.
We are grateful that our protesters are still here and they are exercising their First Amendment right.
Last night in New York, police dressed in riot gear arrested around 300 as they cleared Columbia University's Hamilton Hall, which had been occupied by pro-Palestinian protesters here on the campus that largely kicked off this now nationwide movement.
There are individuals and organizations that are not students. We're seeing a shift in tactics that are being used, destruction of property, destructions of cameras.
Columbia's president said the, quote, drastic escalation of the protests pushed the university to the brink. Overnight at UCLA, counter-protesters, pro-Israel protesters among them, breached the barricades around the pro-Palestinian encampment, which also breaches UCLA campus rules. A firecracker thrown in, cones and more flying through the darkness, pepper spray from inside that camp. The college newspaper photographed a counter-protester spraying from an aerosol can. Daily Bruin reporters on the scene were slapped and indirectly sprayed with irritants. We are sickened by this senseless violence and it must end, said a college spokesperson. Ever since this encampment sprang up Thursday morning, tension has been mounting. The first scuffles Thursday afternoon, more over the weekend, hence the barriers and the buffer zone that was breached last night. The university has allowed the protesters to control who enters the camp. Monday, a Jewish student posted this. Protesters well outside of their encampment, he says, blocking his way.
They're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance.
UCLA called this abhorrent and removed those barriers. Then last night, this.
You're gonna block Jewish kids? Yeah, let's see you. We're fighting back.
What happened last night was an attack on our encampment by Zionist thugs that the university did nothing to stop.
UCLA has, until now, kept security light, the LAPD out of sight until late last night. But after what happened, today, law enforcement is on site, and all classes are cancelled.
Well, Miguel Marquez is following the story at Columbia University, where, of course, 300 people were arrested. We heard from university administrators saying that they believed outside agitators were pushing people to stay in the campus. What do we know about those arrests?
Well, we are waiting to hear from NYPD and from Columbia how many of them were actually students and how many were outsiders. Keep in mind, this has been going on for a couple of weeks here, so some people were expelled, some people were suspended. They may have been students in the last month or so and may not be a student officially at Columbia as well. We've heard some students saying that outsiders who aren't connected to the school were given IDs to get in, so I think all of that is going to get sorted. We know that many of these individuals have been booked now and face either a return to court. I don't think any of them are being held any longer at this point. But I want to show you what's happening outside the gates. Last night, a very different situation here. Protesters, this is the Amsterdam side of Columbia University. One thing about this university is that because it's in a square, police were able to move in very, very heavily and locked the entire area down as though it were a major event. That kept protesters, they pushed all protesters back out of the zone so that police then could go in and remove all of the protesters that were both in Hamilton Hall, which is just here. The Bearcat and that device you saw them get up on the window with went in right on this side. They were able to clear that and the encampment on the university. And right now, these are NYPD officers out front of the university. They're on this side and the main gate on Broadway. All of this was shut down yesterday, which was impressive to see NYPD move in so heavily. It also helped them control the situation, and because they had so many officers at the ready, they could bring people out that were being arrested, keep officers with them on those buses all the way. So amazingly, there were no reports of anyone being injured in this entire operation. Lynda?
Yeah, which is absolutely, really extraordinary. For those that have been detained, the 300 or so, do we know what charges they could face, and are there any other further repercussions at the university?
They're just starting to go through all that. It's going to be everything from trespassing to perhaps assault if they try to assault officers or a range of different. They also did damage to the building, certainly thousands of dollars of damage to Hamilton Hall. So some may face charges for that. For right now, the university is sort of trying to keep everything where it is. It is essentially shut down. This is the only entrance that students and faculty can get onto the main campus through, and they're going to keep NYPD officers in some numbers, not huge numbers, but on campus through May 17th. They're moving into their finals period right now, and then on May 15th is a commencement. And this was part of the problem. In the center of Columbia University is a massive lawn, and that's where they set up a commencement. It's thousands and thousands of people, so having that encampment there was really disrupting. It was a few hundred people disrupting the university and lives for about 40,000 students. Lynda?
Yeah, it's just incredible. And while you were talking, Miguel, we were just showing some live pictures at the University of Texas in Dallas, where it looks like riot police are moving in there and trying to remove an encampment there. No sign of protesters, certainly where you are right now. And have you heard any indications of where the protesters will return?
So they've been at different colleges. City College, they were very active last night as well. Today, Fordham, which is, they have a downtown campus or a midtown campus, and there were protesters there, and apparently they're on the march out through Manhattan. Look, New York and Manhattan, big cities across the country and around the world have seen these protests almost every day. And New York, they've been shutting down bridges, and it's started to focus on campuses now. It's happened at a time that's difficult for schools to deal with because of finals, because of the end of the year and commencement and all the other stuff that goes along with that. A lot of the individuals who are graduating this year, the university points out, didn't have their high school graduation because of the pandemic. So this one was particularly special for some of those people graduating this year. So it's a mix of a lot of stuff. This is not going away. Despite the fact that it's quiet here today, it's not going away. I expect protesters to be back here in some form at some point. Lynda?
All right, Miguel Marquez on the story for us at Columbia University while we look at those pictures coming into us from the University of Texas in Dallas. Certainly a heavy police presence there. Many protesters certainly still waving flags as they try to pull apart an encampment there. We are continuing to follow this story and we will keep you abreast of any developments. Miguel, Marquez, thanks so much.